I speak to you in the quiet of the night when pain feels louder and strength feels distant. I see the tears you hide from the day and the questions you carry when no one is watching. I know the weight of your body and the ache of your soul. I am not offended by your weakness, and I am not impatient with your healing. Come to me without fear, because mercy is not withheld from those who cry out, and healing is not delayed by your honesty. Rest now in my presence, for I am near to the broken, gentle with the weary, and faithful to restore what has been worn down by suffering. When you reach the end of your strength, you have not reached the end of my care. Weakness does not repel me, it draws me closer. I see how pain humbles you, how it strips away the illusion of control and leaves you exposed. You worry that your cries are too frequent, your need too great, your faith too fragile. Yet I tell you that mercy was made for moments like this. I do not turn away from groaning hearts. I respond to them. I know how suffering isolates you. It convinces you that no one truly understands what you endure. Yet I understand fully. I know the language of pain spoken through tears, through silence, through restless nights. I hear the prayers you struggle to form and the ones you are too tired to speak. When you call for mercy, you are not interrupting me. You are coming exactly where you belong. I see how pain affects more than your body. It reaches into your thoughts, your emotions, your sense of hope. It weakens joy and amplifies fear. That is why my mercy does not come only to relieve symptoms, but to steady your soul. I begin where you are most vulnerable. I calm the fear that accompanies suffering. I remind your heart that pain does not have the final word. I know how easy it is to interpret suffering as rejection. You wonder if you have done something wrong, if you are being punished, if you have exhausted my patience. But I tell you plainly that mercy is not earned by perfection. It is given because I am compassionate. I do not measure your worth by your strength. I see your value even when you feel diminished. I watch as exhaustion settles into your bones. Sleep becomes shallow. Rest feels incomplete. The night stretches long, yet even here, mercy is at work. I do not demand that you be strong before I help you. I meet you in frailty. I adjust my pace to match your need. Healing does not rush. It unfolds gently under my care. I know how pain sharpens memory. Regrets resurface. Old wounds reopen. You replay moments you wish had gone differently. Yet I do not use suffering to accuse you. I use it to draw you closer. Mercy covers what shame tries to expose. I do not remind you of failure. I remind you of my faithfulness. I see how fear visits at night. Fear of worsening pain. Fear of unanswered prayers. Fear that healing may never come. Yet I stand with you in the dark. I do not abandon you to anxious thoughts. I speak peace where fear threatens to take hold. You are not alone with your worries. I am present with you. I know how suffering makes you feel fragile. Your confidence weakens. Your certainty fades. Yet I do not require certainty to extend mercy. I respond to honesty. When you admit your weakness, you invite my strength. When you surrender control, you open space for restoration. I watch how your body responds to stress and pain. Muscles tense. Breath shortens. Rest becomes difficult. Mercy moves gently through these systems. I slow what has been racing. I soothe what has been inflamed. I restore balance where strain has dominated. Healing begins quietly, often unnoticed at first. I know how discouragement grows when healing feels slow. You wonder if your prayers matter. You question whether anything is changing. Yet mercy is not always immediate relief. Sometimes it is endurance. Sometimes it is comfort that sustains you until strength returns. I do not waste your waiting. I work within it. I see how pain humbles pride and exposes dependence. This dependence is not weakness, it is alignment. You were never meant to carry suffering alone. When you lean on me, you are not failing, you are trusting. Mercy flows freely where trust is allowed. I know how suffering alters your sense of time. Nights feel endless. Relief feels distant. Yet I am not bound by your perception. I am present in each moment, even when progress feels slow. Mercy does not expire, it renews itself continually. I watch how tears soften the heart. They wash away pretenses. They strip down defenses. When you weep before me, you are not losing dignity. You are opening yourself to healing. I receive your tears without judgment. I hold them as prayers. I know how pain invites doubt. Doubt whispers that you are forgotten, overlooked, unimportant. Yet I remind you that attention does not equal affection. Even when healing is delayed, my care remains constant. Mercy is not measured by speed, but by presence. I see how suffering affects your relationships. You feel misunderstood. You withdraw, you struggle to explain what hurts. Yet I remain near. I listen when others cannot. I understand when words fail. You are not required to explain your pain to be heard by me. I know how guilt can accompany illness. You feel like a burden. You worry about inconvenience. Yet mercy removes this lie. Your need does not diminish your worth. You are not tolerated, you are cherished. I watch how pain exposes the limits of self-reliance. You realize how much you depended on strength you no longer have. This realization is not meant to shame you. It is meant to redirect you. Mercy invites you to rest where effort cannot help. I know how night intensifies emotion. The absence of distraction magnifies discomfort. Yet night is also where healing deepens. When the world grows quiet, my presence becomes more noticeable. I do not fear the dark. I meet you there. I see how suffering can make prayer feel heavy. Faith feels thin. Yet mercy does not require eloquence. A sigh reaches me. A tear speaks volumes. You do not have to be strong to be heard. I know how pain tests patience. You want relief now. Waiting feels unbearable. Yet mercy sustains you through waiting. I give you enough strength for each moment, even when you cannot imagine enduring another. I watch how surrender begins to replace resistance. You stop fighting the reality of your weakness. You allow care. This surrender is not defeat. It is the beginning of healing. Mercy flows when striving ceases. I know how suffering can narrow your world. Joy feels distant. Hope feels fragile. Yet mercy widens your perspective gently. It reminds you that pain is part of your story, not the end of it. I see how healing often begins internally before it manifests externally. Peace returns before strength. Hope rises before relief. This is not delay, it is preparation. Mercy restores you in layers. I know how tempting it is to compare your healing to others. You wonder why relief comes quickly for some and slowly for you. Yet I do not measure care comparatively. Your journey is attended fully. Mercy is not divided. I watch how pain teaches compassion. You notice others suffering more deeply. Your heart softens. This tenderness is not wasted. Mercy transforms pain into empathy. I know how suffering tests trust. You question whether I remain good when relief delays. Yet I remain consistent. My character does not change with your condition. Mercy is who I am. I see how healing requires rest. You cannot heal while constantly bracing. When you surrender the night to me, your body and soul receive permission to recover. Mercy protects rest. I know how fear tries to predict worst outcomes. It steals peace before it arrives. Yet mercy anchors you in the present. You are given grace for now, not fear for tomorrow. I watch how weakness invites gentleness. You learn to treat yourself with care. You release harsh expectations. This gentleness creates space for healing. I know how pain can make you feel exposed. Yet you are safe with me. Vulnerability does not endanger you here. It restores you. I see how the night holds both struggle and promise. While you lie awake, mercy works quietly. Restoration unfolds unseen. I know how longing for relief can become overwhelming. Yet mercy assures you that your cries are not ignored. They are gathered, honored, answered in ways that protect you. I watch how surrendering to mercy eases resistance. You stop demanding explanations. You accept care. Peace begins to settle. I know how pain can feel endless. Yet I remain present in each moment. Mercy does not abandon you halfway. I see how your heart learns trust through suffering. This trust deepens your connection with me. I know how weakness humbles without destroying. It teaches dependence without despair. Mercy supports this transformation. I watch how healing reshapes identity. You learn that worth is not based on productivity. Mercy affirms your value. I know how the night invites honesty. Masks fall away. Truth surfaces. Mercy meets you there. I remain with you as you rest. I do not withdraw when your strength fades. Mercy continues to surround you as healing unfolds quietly within your body, your mind, your spirit, moment by moment through the night under my gentle care. I tend to every part of you, not only what ache is in your body, but what trembles in your soul. I see the way pain settles into your muscles and the way sorrow settles into your thoughts. You may separate them, calling one physical and the other emotional, but I see how deeply they are woven together. When one suffers, the other feels it. That is why my healing never stops at the surface. I heal wholly, patiently, and with understanding that reaches deeper than symptoms. I know how physical pain wears down the spirit. When the body is weak, the mind grows tired and hope feels fragile. You begin to question your resilience, your future, even your faith. Yet I do not see you as broken beyond repair. I see you as someone in need of care. Healing is not a test you must pass. It is a gift I give according to wisdom and compassion. I see how pain limits your movement and how fear limits your thoughts. Your body hesitates, and so does your heart. You worry about what you can no longer do, what you may never do again. I know these thoughts well. I meet them with truth. Your value has never been measured by strength or productivity. Even now, as you struggle, you are held, known, and loved. I heal the body, but I also quiet the voice of fear that rises when pain lingers. Fear tells you that this suffering defines you. Fear tells you that decline is inevitable. Fear tells you that hope is dangerous. I counter fear with presence. When you become aware that I am near, fear loosens its grip. Healing often begins when fear is disarmed. I know how illness or weakness can isolate you. Others continue moving while you slow down, conversations move on. Life seems to progress without you. This isolation wounds the soul even when the body is already hurting. I remain with you in this stillness. You are not forgotten. You are not left behind. I am attentive to every quiet moment. I see how the soul carries wounds that cannot be diagnosed. Grief that has not been spoken. Shame that has not been released. Disappointment that has not been resolved. These wounds weigh on the body over time. That is why my healing touches memory as well as muscle, emotion as well as nerve. I gently surface what needs care, never to overwhelm you, but to restore you. I know how tempting it is to separate faith from pain. You wonder why belief does not erase suffering. Yet faith is not denial. Faith is trust within reality. I do not ask you to pretend you are well. I invite you to let me tend to you where you are hurting. Healing grows best in honesty. I see how pain distorts time. Days feel longer, nights feel endless. Relief feels distant, soul grows weary of waiting. I understand this weariness. That is why I give you mercy for each moment rather than answers for the entire future. Healing unfolds in steps, and each step is supported. I know how the body remembers trauma, past injuries, losses, or fear can resurface in physical ways. Tension holds memory. Pain recalls old wounds. I am present in this remembering. I do not rush you through it. I walk with you as I unwind what has been held too tightly for too long. I heal not only through strength returning, but through gentleness increasing. You learn to listen to your limits. You learn to rest without guilt. You learn to accept care. These lessons are not signs of decline. They are signs of wisdom. Healing includes learning how to live differently, not just how to feel better. I see how the soul becomes restless when the body cannot perform as it once did. You feel trapped within your own limitations. I remind you that stillness is not useless. Even now your life carries meaning. Even now your presence matters. Healing includes rediscovering purpose that is not tied to ability. I know how pain can turn your thoughts inward until they spiral. You replay symptoms. You anticipate worsening. You search for explanations. I gently redirect your focus. I invite you to breathe, to be present, to release the need to understand everything in order to be at peace. I see how emotional pain often intensifies physical suffering. Loneliness tightens muscles. Anxiety amplifies discomfort. Hopelessness drains energy. That is why I speak peace to your heart. Peace does not erase pain immediately, but it changes how you carry it. Healing becomes lighter when peace settles. I know how easy it is to blame yourself. You wonder if you caused this, if you could have prevented it, if you deserve it. These thoughts wound the soul further. I do not heal through accusation. I heal through compassion. I lift blame from your heart so restoration can begin. I see how sickness can challenge identity. You no longer recognize yourself. You grieve who you were. I honor that grief. Healing includes mourning losses honestly. I do not rush you past this. I remain with you as you redefine who you are becoming. I know how prayer feels different when pain persists. Words feel heavy. Hope feels tentative. Yet I hear you even when prayers are weak. I listen to the intention behind the words. Healing is not blocked by fatigue. My attention does not waver when your strength does. I see how the soul longs for reassurance when the body fails. You want to know you are safe, valued, and seen. I reassure you through presence rather than promises of instant relief. Healing deepens when trust replaces panic. I know how illness can make you feel dependent in uncomfortable ways. You rely on others, you feel exposed, you fear being a burden. I counter this fear by reminding you that dependence is not disgrace. It is part of being human. Healing includes allowing yourself to be cared for. I see how restlessness increases when answers are unclear. You search for diagnoses, timelines, explanations. While understanding has value, peace does not wait for certainty. I give you peace even when questions remain. Healing progresses even in uncertainty. I know how the soul can grow impatient with the body. You urge it to recover faster. You grow frustrated with its slowness. I teach patience. The body heals in rhythms, not commands. Healing respects these rhythms. I see how pain can erode joy. Laughter feels distant. Lightness feels inappropriate. Yet joy is not betrayal of suffering. Small moments of joy support healing. I allow joy to return gently, without guilt. I know how nights are especially difficult. Pain is louder. Thoughts are heavier. Sleep feels elusive. I am near in these hours. I soothe the nervous system. I slow racing thoughts. Healing often advances most during rest. I see how emotional wounds sometimes surface when physical pain quiets. As the body calms, the soul speaks. I listen. I do not dismiss what emerges. Healing includes tending to what was buried for survival. I know how fear of recurrence lingers even as symptoms improve. You wait for pain to return. This vigilance exhausts you. I teach you to trust moments of relief. Healing includes learning to rest without bracing. I see how healing reshapes your relationship with control. You learn that not everything can be managed. This realization can feel frightening, but it also opens space for trust. Healing strengthens when control is released. I know how deeply you want assurance that this suffering has meaning. While not all pain is chosen, none is wasted. Healing transforms what hurts into wisdom, compassion, and depth you could not have gained otherwise. I see how healing requires time, and time tests patience. I remain patient with you even when you struggle to be patient with yourself. I do not measure progress harshly. Every small improvement matters. I know how discouragement arises when progress is uneven. Good days followed by difficult ones confuse you. Yet healing is rarely linear. I guide you through setbacks with the same care as advances. I see how emotional safety supports physical healing. When you feel safe, the body relaxes. When the body relaxes, healing accelerates. I create this safety through presence and reassurance. I know how deeply the soul needs hope, not false hope that denies pain, but grounded hope that acknowledges struggle while believing in restoration. I nurture this hope carefully. I see how healing changes your priorities. What once seemed urgent fades. What truly matters becomes clear. This clarity is part of restoration. I know how weakness can teach humility without humiliation. You learn to ask for help. You learn to listen to your body. These lessons strengthen you. I see how healing invites forgiveness. Forgiveness of others. Forgiveness of yourself. Resentment tightens the soul. Release loosens it. Healing flows more freely when forgiveness is allowed. I know how suffering can deepen compassion. You notice others' pain more readily. This sensitivity is not accidental. Healing reshapes your heart. I see how faith matures through suffering. It becomes less about outcomes and more about relationship. Healing strengthens this bond. I know how healing requires trust even when progress is unseen. I ask you to trust my timing, my care, my wisdom. I am attentive even when improvement feels slow. I see how your soul grows stronger even while your body is weak. Strength is not always visible. Healing includes resilience you may not recognize yet. I know how healing touches memory. Painful experiences lose their sting over time. Peace replaces reactivity. This is restoration. I see how you learn to rest differently. Not as escape, but as renewal. Healing honors rest. I know how suffering can feel endless. Yet I remain present in each moment. Healing unfolds whether you see it or not. I see how the night becomes a place of surrender. You release what you cannot fix. I receive it gently. I know how healing ultimately restores trust. Trust in your body, trust in life, trust in me. I see how body and soul begin to work together again. Alignment returns, strength follows. I remain with you through every stage of healing. I do not abandon you in weakness or withdraw when progress slows. I continue tending both your body and your soul with patience, compassion, and care as restoration unfolds quietly through the night and into the days ahead. When you surrender the night to me, you are not giving up hope, you are giving healing permission to work. Night exposes what daylight hides. When activity stops, pain speaks more clearly, fear grows louder, and weakness feels heavier. Yet night is not your enemy. It is the space where restoration is invited to begin. When you release control and place yourself into my care, surrender becomes the doorway through which healing enters. I know how difficult surrender feels when you are hurting. Pain makes you want answers, timelines, guarantees. You want to know when relief will come and how long the suffering will last. Surrender does not give you explanations, but it gives you rest. When you stop demanding certainty, your body softens. When resistance eases, healing has room to move. I see how the night challenges your sense of strength. You can no longer distract yourself. You cannot outwork the pain. You cannot outrun fatigue. This is not failure. This is the moment where surrender becomes sacred. When you admit you cannot fix yourself, you open space for my restoring presence. I know how fear resists surrender. Fear tells you that letting go is dangerous, that vigilance is necessary for survival. Yet constant vigilance exhausts you. Surrender does not leave you exposed, it places you under care. When you stop guarding yourself, I guard you. I watch how your body responds when you finally exhale. Muscles loosen, breathing slows. The nervous system begins to settle. This is not weakness. This is healing beginning at its root. The body cannot restore itself while it is bracing for threat. Surrender signals safety. I know how often surrender is misunderstood. You think it means giving up or accepting defeat. But surrender is not resignation, it is trust. It is the decision to place what you cannot control into hands that can. When you surrender the night to me, you are choosing care over struggle. I see how pain often intensifies when you fight it. Resistance tightens the body. Anxiety amplifies sensation. The mind loops worst-case scenarios. Surrender interrupts this cycle. When you stop fighting the moment, you stop feeding the pain with fear. I know how the night magnifies vulnerability. Darkness feels uncertain. Silence feels heavy. Yet vulnerability in my presence is safe. You do not need armor here. You do not need to pretend strength. I meet you exactly as you are. I watch how surrender shifts the atmosphere of the night. The room does not change, but your inner world does. Tension gives way to stillness. Fear loosens its grip. Rest becomes possible. Healing requires this stillness. I know how control feels comforting when pain has taken so much from you. Control gives the illusion of stability. But control is fragile. It collapses under exhaustion. Surrender provides something stronger. It provides rest that does not depend on effort. I see how surrender teaches your body that it no longer needs to stay on alert. Chronic pain and illness often keep the nervous system in constant defense. When you surrender, you tell your body it is safe to stand down. Healing accelerates when defense is no longer required. I know how the mind resists surrender. Thoughts race, analyzing symptoms, replaying conversations, anticipating outcomes. Surrender quiets this noise. You do not have to solve everything tonight. You are allowed to rest. I watch how surrender invites peace that logic cannot produce. Peace does not argue with pain. It sits beside it and softens its edges. This peace is not denial. It is support. I know how hard it is to trust surrender when healing has been slow. You fear disappointment. You fear hoping again. Yet surrender does not demand optimism. It only asks for honesty. You do not need to believe everything will be better tomorrow. You only need to release tonight into my care. I see how surrender allows the body to enter deeper rest. Sleep becomes more restorative. Micro-tension releases. Healing processes activate quietly. Much of what restores you happens without your awareness. I know how surrender affects the soul. Shame loosens. You stop judging yourself for being weak. Compassion replaces criticism. Healing deepens when kindness returns inward. I watch how surrender redefines strength. Strength is no longer measured by endurance alone, but by trust. You are strong not because you endure pain silently, but because you allow yourself to be cared for. I know how surrender confronts fear of the unknown. You worry about what tomorrow holds. Surrender anchors you in now. You do not need tomorrow's strength tonight. You are given grace for this moment. I see how surrender changes your relationship with waiting. Waiting no longer feels like abandonment. It becomes a season of being held. Healing unfolds more gently when waiting is embraced rather than resisted. I know how surrender can feel like loss of identity. You were used to being capable, dependable, strong. Illness and pain strip these roles away. Surrender allows a new identity to form, one rooted in worth rather than function. I watch how surrender opens emotional wounds that were buried. Grief surfaces. Tears come, memories rise. This is not regression. This is healing reaching deeper layers. What is acknowledged can be restored. I know how surrender allows you to rest without guilt. You stop measuring yourself by productivity. You stop apologizing for needing rest. Healing requires permission, and surrender grants it. I see how surrender helps you receive help from others. You stop pushing people away. You allow care. This connection supports healing emotionally and physically. I know how surrender softens anger. Anger often masks fear and grief. When you surrender, anger loses its edge. Compassion grows. I watch how surrender quiets self-judgment. You stop asking why you are not stronger. You stop comparing your healing to others. Healing progresses when comparison ends. I know how surrender invites patience. You stop demanding immediate relief. You accept gradual progress. This patience reduces stress, which supports healing. I see how surrender helps the body release stored tension. Trauma, fear, and pain are held in the muscles. When you surrender, these stores begin to release safely. I know how surrender allows peace to coexist with pain. You no longer need pain to disappear in order to rest. Rest becomes possible even before healing is complete. I watch how surrender reshapes prayer. Prayer becomes less about asking for change and more about allowing presence. This presence heals in ways words cannot. I know how surrender transforms the night from a battlefield into a sanctuary. Instead of fighting symptoms, you rest within care. I see how surrender helps regulate the nervous system. Stress hormones lower. The body shifts into repair mode. Healing responds to this shift. I know how surrender rebuilds trust. Trust in your body. Trust in the process. Trust that you are not alone. I watch how surrender deepens intimacy with me. You bring your rawest self. You stop performing faith. You rest in relationship. I know how surrender teaches humility without humiliation. You accept limits without shame. Healing respects this humility. I see how surrender allows joy to return in small ways. A moment of ease, a calm breath. These moments matter. I know how surrender helps you release fear of relapse. You stop scanning your body constantly. Peace returns when vigilance fades. I watch how surrender allows you to sleep without bracing. Even if sleep is light, it is safer. Healing benefits. I know how surrender teaches you to live gently. This gentleness supports long-term restoration. I see how surrender reduces resistance to reality. Acceptance replaces struggle. Healing moves more freely. I know how surrender opens the door to hope that is grounded rather than desperate. This hope sustains you. I watch how surrender transforms weakness into connection. You are not isolated in pain. You are accompanied. I know how surrender restores dignity. You are not less because you need care. You are human. I see how surrender allows healing to unfold in its proper timing. You stop forcing progress. I know how surrender steadies your heart, anxiety lessens, peace grows. I watch how surrender teaches your body it is safe to heal. I know how surrender replaces striving with rest. I see how surrender opens you to mercy without resistance. I know how surrender anchors you through the night. I watch how surrender allows restoration to continue quietly. I know how surrender prepares you to receive strength when it returns. I remain with you as you release control, as you rest, as you soften, as you trust, as healing unfolds beneath awareness, through stillness, through patience, through the night where surrender becomes the place restoration begins and continues gently under my care.